Welcome to The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
All right, welcome everybody to Whole Health Weekly. Let me get that music going. So, appreciate all you guys here tonight. This will be fun. Julie, hello. Nice to see you again. That was pretty cool today. Me and Julie ran into each other. One of my favorite listeners. As I was running frantically to get robot parts. So on Wednesdays, we're going to have like Wednesday, I'll have robotics is my middle school team. We're coming along pretty good. Now we're in the stress phase. We're in the stress phase where we have to, figure things out. We got a good robot. It looks like, but now now it becomes the design part. So it's pretty cool. I've been pushing the kids pretty hard, so they want to win stuff, so we gotta do that. So it's been a joy already, and it's only like week 2. So with that said, let's get into some stuff tonight. So this is episode 38 of Whole Health Weekly, and so what I want you to do is, if you ever need to, me and Julie had this conversation. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to either our YouTube or Rumble, or as a podcast, you can have all the different shows. So if you miss one, you can just watch a recording and all those kind of things. So I'm going to put those in the comments, this section. Rumble's my favorite because it's really easy to kind of discern. It's easy to not get in the mess. Kind of breaks it down really nice on there. But that's just my preference. YouTube, I don't know. I haven't checked that in a little bit. But YouTube, we're on there, or it's on Jeremy and Rach or something. I may have to change the name of that one just because it's just Jeremy and Rach's YouTube. So it's kind of fun though. And then the other is podcast. So podcast, you can get this on any platform, that they have a podcast. So Spotify, iTunes, all those good ones. So that'll be on there. And then our final one is if you want to subscribe to an email list that I use just to send out stuff for this show, or if I find like cool, relevant articles, that might be a thing. It's called Substack. It's fantastic. So if you've never done that, it's really, really good. So with that said, we always start tonight on Whole Health Weekly with a great chiropractic quote. And we're going to start that, and then we're going to go into some articles. My office manager, Gina, gave me a TikTok topic that I'm very, very fascinated with. It's an interesting one. So she said it's blowing up all over TikTok. And so we'll get to talk about that because it's stuff that we've talked about before. So let us take a look at this first, the chiropractic quote. So I really like this. This one is, I believe they give it credit to a guy named that I love. He was a president of our college, one of my presidents of the college when I went to Palmer College of Chiropractic. But his name was Dr. Guy Reekman. And this quote was, I think, quoted to him, which I really like. The greatest gift we can give humanity is to awaken to the realization that health comes from within. And chiropractic is key to unlocking that potential. So let me do that again. The greatest gift we can give humanity is to awaken the realization that health comes from within us. And chiropractic is the key to unlocking that potential, which is why I do what I do, why I can talk about it at nauseam all the time. It's such a cool thing. when you understand that the human body, we have this innate intelligence within us, and that innate intelligence can take on anything, and we see it at all the time. You know, it's remarkable how many different things. I'm hoping I may have. I got to get his parents' permission, but I may have a kid that went through some amazing situations, um, and just see where he's at now. He went through where he couldn't walk. There was a condition that just hit him out of nowhere. It's a super rare condition. Very young, was a runner. All of a sudden, he cannot physically move anymore. And then miraculously, he got over it. And he's back running, all these kind of things. So I see this stuff all the time. And it's the power of the healing, the power of who we are, the power of all those things. The problem is we get taught day after day that someone else, to really feel good, to make sure your body is doing what it's supposed to do, we really need to, buy this thing from me, right? If we constantly are buying these things from people, a lot of times, then, it doesn't make sense. If they're not going to sell a lot of stuff if your innate intelligence is the driver of health, right? It's just the way it is, And so once we start understanding that in our role and understanding how our body and what we can do, it'll be a really good thing. I want to tell you a story about this week. If he ever gets on, I'll tell you a story on a patient because I really want this to drive it home. I have a patient right now that was suffering pretty hard with what they call the sciatic nerve stuff, right? The sciatic nerve pain down your leg. If anybody's ever had it, it's awful. I feel for people that have it, like when I had it years ago. I just remember, and back then it was just me in the office. So, you're petrified to even, not work anymore, so you couldn't take the time off, you thought. And so I would rest in between patients. And eventually I understood, with the power of the human body, I was able to get over it. Now, is that true every time? Of course not. Right. I'm not saying that. But one of the things that came to me in this week was one of my patients. He's been a diehard, loyal, forever patient. He's like, comes in. But one of the things that happens, and he's been one of my favorites, as he's going. But one of the things that happens is sometimes even the doctor and we still go back to the pain model, the sick care model. So he was coming in only when his back hurts, those kind of things, right? So he actually worked closer. And so he'd come in on a regular basis just to get checked, making sure all of that's good. Well, he did that for a long time. Well, then his next job that he had moved him away. So now he's only coming in when he really can't move anymore, or, those kind of things. One of the things we had to have a long talk. This guy told me, right to me, he has been working 43 years of his life and he had never missed a day. And I thought, that's incredible. Number one. Number two, he lives a lifestyle kind of that can do that, very physically active, eats pretty dang good, happy all the time. There's a lot of pieces that would make sense that he wouldn't, miss a bunch of days. Well, he's getting in the 60 area, right? The 60 area, and he's working like 9 hours a week on a physical mechanical type job. And he gets a sciatic nerve, and the amount of avoidance in his voice when me and him are talking, I didn't understand it. I go, you're 60 something years old. You don't really have to work anymore. You're kind of leaning towards that retirement thing, but really, you just want to do it. And he's got 4 other mechanics that kind of rely on him because they're shorthanded. Well, he, let's say 2 weeks ago, couldn't sleep for 3 days. He had to go, and as we were adjusted, and so he'd come in, he gets adjusted, he'd feel better, but then he'd go back to the same 9-hour day. I said, it's fine most of the time. When we were younger, that's not a problem. You can throw you back in there. But one of the problems was, and it's the toughest portion of it, was I said you have to balance the amount of work you're doing with that actual adequate rest time. It has to happen. Like as we age, it's not a big deal. We just have to get in our brain that it's okay to rest. It's okay to slow it down and let nature do it. There's a homeostasis pathway. There's ways that we can heal, that we don't have to like give up the ghost. It doesn't mean you can't work just as hard, right? So I said, how about this? Can you promise me to take 3 days off in a row? And he could not. He was like, I can't let down my guys. And I was sad by that. So we had to go back at it. Okay. Here's the next negotiation. Can I get you off 4 days? Can I do only 4 hours a day? Well, maybe I could do that. All right. So that's fair. So let's do 4 hours a day for like a week. Okay. So we're going to try that. So I'll keep you posted on how this works out, because the boy had a lot of come to Jeremy moment. I had to even scare him a little bit with telling him about this patient that came in and this thing called foot drop, right? If you must take care of yourself, you can't punch through all this stuff. We're talked into a lot of these things that, oh yeah, you just toughen up, just take a few more pain pills, that'll be fine. And then your leg doesn't work anymore, right? There's a problem with that kind of mindset. And we have to find that holistic pattern that allows us to do that. Okay. So I know that was a little rant, but I love hearing like stories like that and understanding how to rest. How to rest is just as important as how to work, right? Some people rest too much when they retire or get there, and that's the opposite problem, right? But for some that are out there, especially around me, that's around, come in, a lot of times it's, I want to work through, and I'll take something or I'll manipulate my body around so I don't have to worry about it and I can just do the normal day-to-day tasks. So just remember, making sure if you're going to live this holistic lifestyle, you want to do that, then you got to listen. You got to listen to your body. Now, Jeremy, listen to your body and let things happen, and then healing can happen for you. So with that said, I'm going to go into what Gina said as our TikTok situation. Let me find that. All right. This one was an interesting one. She said there is a wave of huge TikTokers blaming our processed foods for autoimmune diseases and the general unhealthiness in the US. It's fascinating. And here's a good one. And they're talking about, they're even blaming Trump for it. Okay. Which is kind of an interesting concept, but it's talking about how these poisons are being allowed in foods. What's interesting about that is this is the first, not to say I'm going to get political, but we have Robert Kennedy Jr. might be the first guy to actually call these people to the carpet on the amount of poisons that are in food. Listen to this one. Okay. Here's a shocking one for all my holistic guys. So I've been doing it 25 years. I thought red dye 40, any of the horribly toxic crap that they were putting in was off the shelf like 20 years ago. Oh no, ladies and gentlemen. You know what they do? They just changed the name. So it used to be called red dye number 3. I remember it because it was about 15 years ago. I literally watched a kid on a YouTube video. They had a kid he was reading a book. They said, okay, read this chapter. So this kid goes in, reads a chapter in this room. The next part of the test, they put red, certain chocolate. I don't want to put it like there was a chocolate candy that all of them were red. Okay. So they put that in the room with the kid. And they said, go ahead and have as many of those as you'd like. Okay. As many of those as you'd like. And then read the same chapter or read the next chapter. The kid was off the walls. He was bouncing on all the different walls. Like he was trying to lockpick that sucker. He was like, there was no chance this kid was going to do the chapter. And it just fascinates me that, like, what is it, 15 years later, it got snuck back in. Apparently, it's like a penny, right? You can't find anything different. So we're going to go with a penny because it makes you eat more, right? That's why you do that. It's not because it's good for you. It's because they can sell more of them. So then all of a sudden, it's back in the thing. And my jaw fell to the floor. I was like, it's 2025 and we're getting rid of that one? Whoa. Or how about this? I mean, the crazy part, if that is really happening on TikTok and they're like blaming this administrator, that blows my mind. Because most of I've never seen anybody do anything else. I've never seen one person take one of these poisons out of the food ever. Us holistic people have been screaming from the rooftops for this stuff for years and nothing happens, or they just change the name. They'll be like, okay, well, instead of high fructose corn syrup, we'll get by with, we'll just make them a fructoglucose. They'll never suspect anything like that, right? That's what they do, guys. They change the names, do this thing, say it's organic, and then Rachel brought up one that was fascinating to me. Now you can't have an organic cow because some of these farmers are feeding them grain the whole time and then finishing them, just giving them grass like at the end, like a grass fed. So if there's ways around to keep the prices low, they're going to do that, right? And so that's one of the scariest parts of our food processing supply, is because all of those margins are what it's made for, right? And I'm not saying, like the farmer is the bad guy. You have to make a living somehow. And if those other things are not available, then we have issues, right? So I'll give you an example of this. Like when we're saying there's poisons in our food, yes, guaranteed. Autoimmune disease all over the place. The one we're going to talk about a lot of times is going to be seed oils, right? So that's making the topics all over the place. But seed oils are actually also terrible for you, right? So it's all the processed stuff. Tons of stuff is made in these seed oils. We want to go back to, if you fry something, you want it in like a beef tallow or something like that, right? And that is so much better for you. One of the problems, though, is it's also a distraction from the fake sugar, okay? The fake sugar is probably, I would say, and this is just an opinion, but almost as, if it's not as bad as seed oils, it's right up there. They're going to have a study going, oh my God, quit eating the fake sugar. So let's go through that real quick, because I really like explaining how this is from Dr. Geimer, actually. Okay, so I love this analogy. So say you have, so I'm going to do it for podcast and video real quick. All right. So I'm going to take this piece of paper and how fake sugar works. Okay. So let's say this, I'm going to make kind of a truck out of this piece of paper. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. So here's the truck. So here's our little truck. And so what happens is the chemists of our world had to figure out how we're going to get a molecule of sugar into our body. So usually it's just this little molecule of sugar from a fruit, and it goes into your body and you burn it and then you use it for energy. Okay, simple enough. That's organic. You eat an apple. That's what happens, right? So the problem the chemists had is they can't really get this sugar molecule in there. So what they did was they created a truck. So they have this little truck. Okay, so the truck has the sugar in the back of the wagon there, right? So as it's going down, we're driving this truck to its location, and then the truck drops off the sugar, and that sugar goes and gets used, and then life is good. Wait, hold on. This big old truck is still in my body, though. And it's not food. It's not used for energy. So what is it? It's an enemy. It's an enemy. So what happens to your system? your system starts attacking the truck. So your autoimmune system, your immune system attacks the truck and is completely occupied. Now, here's our problem. How much sugar do we, fake sugar, natural sweeteners, or fake, all these different sweeteners, right? Why do they call it sweeteners? Right? Because it's a chemical, right? So, the Diet Cokes of the world that taste the exact same as a Coke, right? You're just changing these chemicals and you're sticking a bunch of trucks with the sugar molecule in your body, okay? Once you do that, your immune system freaks out. It freaks out and it's like, dude, I got stuff to do. So it's constantly activated going after this fake sugar. Now it'll make more sense. So when she says TikTok is saying there's a lot of poisons in our food that are causing autoimmune disorders. And I hate the word poison because right now we're considering them ingredients, but they're the chemical ingredients in any processed food. That's why ultra processed food is really, really hard on you. And until we come to that realization where most of our stuff should be nice, organic, the best is, if you cook it, you cook it yourself, you grow it yourself, all those things, that's fantastic, right? But we have to start looking and paying attention to that. And the TikTok world is absolutely correct. Autoimmune diseases didn't come around until our processed food chemicals got to a certain point that pretty much is it food, right? That's the problem. Remember, I hate bringing up names of stuff because I don't want to. There was one title of a butter that I can't believe they used as an answer. I can't believe they would title their butter that, right? All of us remember that. Did you know that was like one molecule away from being plastic? But guess what they could say? They could process in your body. You may not have any allergies to it, and it has very little calories. Well, why does it have very little calories? Calories are a count of how much energy and how your body utilizes the food. So it has 0 calories. Guess what? You get 0 energy from it. Think about that. Caloric count is an energy count. So remember that as we go. Okay. Hopefully you enjoyed that TikTok rant. That was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So if you guys have any questions, throw something in the chat and we are off. So now we're going to talk about the health topics that were coming in this week. And then we'll get into some Dr. Mercola stuff. And then I'll leave you alone for the night. How about that? All right, cool. Here we go. So it sounds like there's a COVID-19 surge, a new variant called Stratus. It's spreading very fast. It's got sore throat, fatigue, cough. I've seen it in the office. There's some big old COVID stuff. Yeah, it happens. It's going to be, I think it's going to be in the level of like the flu now. It's going to be like, there's like probably the COVID and flu kind of scenario. There's going to be serious flus. There always is, right? So remember what we talked about in Sunday. Sunday, we actually went through the immune system. This is a good time to hit up that recording. So vitamin D, C, zinc, right? This thing called ZACEs. So I'll slow down for this. So write these down if you haven't heard this before. So zinc, vitamin A, vitamin C, E, selenium. Okay. Selenium is a nice little micronutrient that you can take. And all of these, you just take your normal amount. There's a few other things you can take. You could take what they call a adaptogen. Okay. So an adaptogen in the herbal world is something that kind of helps improve all of your systems. Okay. So an adaptogen kind of improves all systems. They're not sure if it hits one area or not. One that's really good is called astragalus. Astragalus is really good for the immune system plus the rest of your body. And these are things you want to do prior to the flu season coming. Okay. The adaptogen you guys hear about all the time right now in the news is ashwagandha. So that's another one, right? Some other things you could take if you really want to like kick off that flu stuff. Oh, yeah, by the way, that whole topic, don't do a bunch of fake sugar. Like this would be a great time to go sugar-free, and not really sugar-free like the sugar-free food, but like this would be a good time to not do a bunch of sugar, right? And a bunch of fake sugar because of why? Because the immune system would be occupied, and therefore you start getting these kind of signs and symptoms of different things. Okay. So if those are kind of these viruses that are spreading, there's the I think they even have the flu. They always have some fun ones. Little bird flu, little COVID. It's the time of year, guys. That's what's going to happen. They can name it whatever they want. When you start losing vitamin D, oh yeah, I don't know if that was on my list. Vitamin D for sure. Making sure your vitamin D level is on the level that you want it to be. But there's a ton of great and all the B vitamins. Quercetin I really like as well. Quercetin, Quercitin. Quercetin is really good because it helps allow that zinc to kind of get into the cells as well. But these are all things, right? They're all things that are very similar in their stuff. But if your immune system's up, ready to go and active, your innate intelligence is working, ready to fight off whatever it is, you get over it with so much better zeal than most of the time it's worth doing. Okay. So there's that one. All right. Okay. All right. So let's talk about I'm trying not to stay I'm trying to stay out of getting crazy politically because there's so many good things were happening in the sense of we're at least getting attention for the first time. You're talking, guys, chiropractic has been around for 100 plus years. And we've been talking about a lot of these things that are coming up in the news now for about 60 plus years. Right. And so some of the more controversial stuff that would get me knocked off of most of the platforms, I'm going to stay away from because you know where I stand. You know where I stand because it's been 40 years and chiropractic has been on the forefront of a lot of these different situations. So it's not new to us, but people act like it's a new thing. Drives me crazy. And it's in one sense, super happy it's finally getting there in another. Okay. So just that said, that's why you won't hear me say stuff about certain controversial topics because it'd be cool to not be banned because YouTube is crazy that way. Shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is. Okay. Let's see. All right. Let's see if there's any good. Okay. Let's do stress in chronically ill kids. Ooh, okay. So let's talk about that. Okay, sorry guys. This didn't break it down like I like to usually. All right. Yeah, this wasn't as good a breakdown as I usually get. Oh, this is kind of cool. Well, no, that's not a good one. Well, we could talk about this one. I think this is good. The Affordable Care Act, which is the thing back a while ago we did, right? Affordable Care Act enrollment challenges. Millions face high costs for 2026 plans, prompting the Trump administration to promote high deductible options up to $10,000 out of pocket before coverage kicks in. A projected surge in uninsured Americans could strain local systems. Relatedly, food service assistance cuts may worsen family health outcomes. And that could be fair. There's a few things that could be happening potentially, though, that I'm really excited about. One is they also did a pharmaceutical being fair in pharmaceuticals as far as an American citizen. Okay. So that's going to happen, it looks like. And one of the things that's happening to our healthcare system is these rising costs of these secret drugs getting put into your healthcare. So what happens is this Affordable Care Act actually took. If some of us will remember, we're old enough to remember, you used to have drug coverage and healthcare coverage. When they were separated like that, you were able to get services out of the healthcare coverage, but then you had this additional thing to cover the cost of prescription drugs. Affordable Care Act kind of snuck it where those two, I don't know if Affordable Care Act did it, but it's over time. Those two things started integrating into each other where your healthcare is now covering the cost of your pharmaceuticals. I am not joking about this. I had a patient today, my jaw hit the floor. The injection he takes every 3 months is $24,000. He takes this injection, $24,000. So imagine what that does to a healthcare system when those two things are intermingled like that. All of a sudden, the healthcare insurance has to make a decision on what they're going to cover and what they're not. So then what's going to happen is if you have a major medicine that's getting covered like that, they're going to have to sneak and dig and dunk and figure out ways to not cover something else so they can make up for that loss. When they integrated those two together, I think, this is just an opinion, I think that was awful. Excuse me. I think that was awful to do. And I really believe we need to figure out how to make sure that America is paying the same prescription drugs that every other country is. Because I would be upset if I find out that this drug that costs this man $24,000, that's every 3 months, and he goes to Mexico and it's $1,000 a month or every 3 months, I'm going to be upset by that. In fact, I'm going to do some research and find out because I know what the drug is called. And if it's in a different country for a lot different price than that, then that's the kind of stuff that's happening to the American healthcare system. It's crazy the amount of that stuff happening. So I don't blame anybody per se, except for we've gotten too big and too non-accountable for these kind of actions just based on profitability. And it's scary. It's absolutely petrifying. So with that said, that was a pretty decent one. But like what we're going to do now, because there wasn't a lot of options on there. Nothing crazy holistic that I liked. So what we're going to do is go into Dr. Mercola's awesome articles. Ooh, I like this, and we need to talk about it because this is a pretty good one. I want you guys to understand the role of it. Okay, so and a lot of you have heard this, so heard of this supplement, so this will be good. Emerging health benefits of creatine supplements. It's smaller than a vitamin. This is by the articles done by Dr. Joe Mercola. Remember, that's where I get all of my articles. Usually it's him that's writing them. So it's smaller than a vitamin, older than medicine, and more vital than most realize. Science is finally uncovering how it can help you restore clarity, vitality, and strength. Creatine isn't just for athletes. It fuels brain function, immune response, and recovery from stress and illness by supporting how your cells make and recycle energy. Older adults, vegetarians, and those with brain fog or long COVID, this is interesting, are especially likely to benefit from creatine, as natural production and intake often fall short. Daily creatine supplementation improves memory, learning, and executive functions in aging adults, including those with Alzheimer's disease. When combined with resistance training, creatine actually helps build lean muscle, speed recovery, and reduce risks of frailty-related falls and fractures. Grass-fed meat is one of the best food sources for creatine, but supplementing like 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate daily is a safe and effective way to increase levels. Now, I'm going to put my spin on this because creatine is one of those things, just like melatonin, just like GLP-1. There's no difference there. Okay. These are all things that your body creates. Creatine is in the process of making energy for your body. Okay. We don't want to always take the road of constantly replacing that. It's just like melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that our body produces. If you take melatonin as a supplement, and they'll call it a natural supplement because it basically is, you're taking this natural supplement, but you're actually replacing the hormone, the melatonin hormone, which makes your brain, your innate intelligence of your body say, oh, you have melatonin, so I'm going to get rid of it. I don't need to be producing it because you're taking it. So I'm going to use my resources elsewhere. Same thing can happen with creatine users over a long stretch. That's why I will always recommend not giving this to a child. And maybe a child that's like injured or something in that realm, that because they make their own creatine as you go. And if you take and you start giving creatine to a kid, their ability to create creatine later becomes a problem. Okay. Also, and I've seen it for years, if you allow a kid to gain that type of muscle mass by using all these other things that you get at like a weightlifting type thing, you also reduce growth plates. And growth plates are critical to being able to make sure that, you get that height, you get that, all those things. So I really, like that's why they tell kids not to do a lot of heavy weightlifting. I think you can do some. I really do. I think you can get away with some. The problem is don't do a ton of this supplementation that would like replace the body's processes, right? We don't ever want to do that. We want to keep that natural process going. Now, as we age, the older we get, the more processes we lose. So we're not making as much creatine as we go. So just like melatonin, I tell people as you age, if let's say you're above 60 and you want to try melatonin, do it. And you can do a long run of it. Just understand that you should probably not do it all the time. Try to go without it, right? Same thing with creatine. You could do it for a long period of time. You could go take this creatine. It'll help your muscle tone, help your brain, sounds like good brain function. Long COVID was interesting to me. That's why I like that article because there's a lot of people are suffering with long COVID situations, and maybe creatine, which is a very nice supplement, very easy to do, could be one of the answers for that for some people. So, and just remember, grass-fed beef is probably your best option because it's natural and you actually bring that creatine into your body. Your body knows what to do with it, that kind of thing. So remember grass-fed beef. That's a really good one. So hopefully you'll remember creatine. It's good. Good for a lot of things. Okay. All right. Oops, sorry. Sorry, I muted myself there. All right. Sorry. I had these all picked. Ooh, here's a good one. This one's called glutamine. Glutamine is what we're talking about. So this is a good one. It's a really good amino acid. Okay, so remember that. Glutamine. Glutamine protects eye health and helps prevent vision loss. This is by Dr. Mercola. There's a surprising link between it's very common amino acid too. So it's this common amino acid and eye health might change how you think about protecting your vision. Glutamine is the most abundant amino acid in your body, supporting tissue repair, immune function, and energy production, while also helping protect your eyes from vision loss. Research shows eyes rely on glutamine to fuel the photoreceptors, the light sensing cells of the retina, making it a key nutrient for long term vision health. When glutamine metabolism is disrupted, photoreceptors degenerate rapidly, triggering harmless stress pathways that accelerate retinal thinning and increase the risk of blindness. You can support natural glutamine levels through diet by eating foods such as grass-fed beef, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, pastured eggs, raw dairy, spinach, cabbage, beans, and even white rice. So it's a very common amino acid. You can supplement with it as well, but that one could be a really good, easy supplement to start with. And here's how I look at it. Look at your family history. Look at like the people around you. Did any of them have vision problems? Not necessarily can you see, right? Did they end up with, a lot of people have it, cataracts, right? Cataracts are very common. If glutamine helps those cells in your eyes, wouldn't it be a good thing, right? To have really good eye health, and if let's say you had people with advanced cataracts or, those kind of situations, you had to go in and get these surgeries, right? Those are things that why don't you eat for eye health? Especially if your mom or dad or somebody had this bad vision, right? And they had to have these issues, glaucoma, all those things. Start eating for your health. And that one, pretty easy if you know what your family history is. So I thought that was a good one. Glutamine. It's a good one. Easy amino acid to put in your body too. Let's see. Okay. I really want to talk about this one. This will probably be, where's it at? Okay, here we go. This one I want to read because this is Dr. Joe Mercola talking about it. So this is not me recommending anything necessarily. I just want to have you have the information out there. Okay, because this has been starting to raise a concern for me in the overall picture of everybody's health. But it's one of those where it's like, I would say it's like outside my scope in the sense of understanding, I'm not telling that this is not heart health advice in that sense, but you should listen to this article and then talk to your heart guy or gal, if you have those kind of situations, but you should know it because it's happening. New research reveals how low sodium disrupts the heart's electrical rhythm. Okay. How low sodium disrupts the heart's electrical rhythm. Low sodium levels deserve more than an afterthought, especially if you take common heart rhythm drugs. As research shows, low sodium intensifies their effects. Sodium is an essential electrolyte. It supports fluid balance, nerve signaling, muscle contraction, and heartbeat coordination. Even small drops in blood sodium disrupt these essential functions. A Virginia study found that low blood sodium amplifies the effects of a lot of different kinds of drugs. I'm not going to name those by disrupting the key electrical support systems between the heart cells. Restoring sodium to its normal range reversed these heart conduction problems, and we'll go through a lot of that. This confirms that the effects were due to temporary sodium imbalances. People on sodium channel blockers need to monitor their sodium levels really, really closely, as common triggers like diuretics or illness cause dangerous delays in heart signal conduction. Most adults do well with about 3,500 milligrams of sodium daily, especially when it comes from unprocessed, mineral-rich sources balanced by adequate potassium intake. So I'll read a little bit more on this just to give you some more. For decades, public health guidelines have emphasized lowering sodium intake to protect cardiovascular health. The goal was to limit the amount of sodium circulating in the bloodstream, and they weren't wrong. And I'll tell you why in a minute, which in turn lowers fluid retention and decreases the workload on the heart. However, this approach carried a risk because sodium isn't about blood pressure. It's also about the electrical signals that keep your heartbeat steady. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. So, sodium has been a concern of mine because some of you know, I used to teach a community college class just for fun, really. It was a blast. I hope to do it again someday when my kids get all older. Can't stop doing it, but it was really fun. It was a night class kind of situation, where I was teaching physiology. And one of the things you notice when you start teaching physiology is that our entire system's electrical, guys. It's electrical. All these sodiums is plus minus all over your body. You know those little batteries? Oh, I got one right here. So I got these little batteries. There's a plus side and a minus side. That's how things move throughout your body. These little batteries have just fluid encapsulated in it. Okay. That's how it moves the electrical back and forth. Your body is kind of no different. The way it moves fluids through different things, moves it around your body, is electricity. It's electric. Okay. And so what's happened is, and to no fault of anyone, so please understand that, we were told that, don't eat salt ever again. Don't do it ever again. And so what the problem was is like we had this stuff in our stores because that's where they like to take the stuff that's not good for you. No, I'm just kidding. They had table salt. So they would use table salt was just straight sodium chloride or whatever. So salt is. I can't remember it's sodium and something else. So the salt itself, the table salt, was just straight sodium. Okay. Or just that, right? Well, how to take sodium or sea salt in general, don't get rid of regular table salt. Go to sea salt, things with other minerals in it. Your body really can respond well to that and take very little. You don't need a ton of it, right? You don't need to salt entire, because for a long time that was the biggest thing. The doctors are like, holy crap, look at these guys, their meals are throwing salt and pepper so much on these meals that they, it had to be the salt content, right? But what happens is like we went the other way. So we got rid of all the salt and now we're having issues because the electrical rhythm of the heart's having issues. Why? Because the sodium is so low. So this is something you could actually take a look at, with your doctor. Look at your sodium level. Is it low? Get it up there, but get it back up there with a good natural sea salt, Himalayan salt. We're lucky in my town. We have this beautiful grocery store called Horrocks, and they have like 70 different kinds of salt there. So any of those are so much better for you, right? And that's what the kind of thing you want to do. So salt necessarily isn't an enemy. They're going to find that out with same like they did with eggs and cholesterol, blah blah blah. Those kind of things. There's always a rebuttal 10 years later, right? Be like, oh yeah, we should have told you. Do the salt again. But that's how it goes with some of these things. But it's one extreme to the other. But understand that like a low sodium can be a very big concern, especially if you're having heart arrhythmias. It's something to watch on a regular basis. Okay. So so now if you're, looking for, things to watch, right, in your blood work, two things already. Find out what your vitamin D level is, right? Make sure it's normal or good. And then now watch for your sodium level. Those two off your sheet. All of you are starting to get these sheets at home. You're getting your blood work at home. Why not take a look? Why not learn what that means? Okay, what do I got to do to get those things figured out, right? Because that will help you more than waiting 3 months to see the doctor for the blood work you just did. Okay? All right, guys. I think to save this beautiful voice of mine, I'm going to end it here. Yeah, I think I'm going to end it here. unless I find a cool chiropractic article research, anything new. Not really. Oh, this is cool. Okay, no, there was one. There is this one. I don't have the whole thing, but there is a new research thing on frozen shoulder, what they call adhesive capsulitis. I've actually done a whole video on frozen shoulder and what that entails. Frozen shoulder is a different animal than an injury to the shoulder per se. There's a lot more involved in it when you're talking the spine and spinal nerves. And now they're doing research to say, okay, if I adjust that spine in a correct way, and all of a sudden you get improvement in the shoulder itself. Partly, we believe, is because we ignite and excite, get that nervous system that controls your shoulder back working, and therefore it can happen. So that's an exciting thing. I've seen it at the office all the time, but to have somebody go in and actually do the research will be phenomenal. So with that said, I thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. I appreciate it. Hopefully you're enjoying these. And with that said, you guys have a great night, and I'll see you Sunday. I believe. I can't remember. I think I'm doing a condition this Sunday. So if you have any suggestions or asks for conditions that you'd like me to go over, like some kind of physical thing, let me know in the chat, when you're watching this again. So with that said, you guys rock. Have a great Wednesday night, and we'll see you on Sunday. Have a good one.